Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today for this second edition of the Sentinel podcast series. We have with us our colleague and friend Philippe Valoggia from List Institute. And the idea is to spend here some time with Philippe to discuss a little bit about Sentinel, about the objectives of Sentinel, and how does Philippe foresee, let's say, Sentinel offerings and Sentinel objectives within the next future. So, without further delay, Philippe, thank you very much for accepting this invitation to be with us in the Friday afternoon.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will pass the word to you. If you can basically very briefly present yourself and also present the List Institute that you represent.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Philippe. I'm a senior research engineer at Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. The LIST is the acronym of Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. It is a public research and technology organization which is dedicated to the development and transfer of science and technology to the benefit of the economy and of the society. At least we especially investigate how data-driven innovation can be used to tackle current environmental, social, and economic challenges. And in my research and innovation group, we are concerned by the risk arising from the implementation of such data-driven innovation, and especially security, privacy, data protection, and ethics risk. Our activity aims at contributing to better evaluate and treat this risk to ensure the development of trustworthy data-driven innovation.
Okay, thank you very much, Philippe, for this brief explanation. I think pretty much some of the, let's say, the concepts and the words that you used, I would say, are a trend right now. I would say in the last years, and now I take the opportunity to jump to our, let's say, first question, with this also regards with the data privacy, security, and GDPR compliance, which I guess that to some extent are the, let's say, the terms behind, let's say, Sentinel project. How do you see the current landscape of the European SMEs with this regards?
It's a hard question, isn't it? It's a hard question because the concept of SMEs is not maybe the right level to analyze the situation. We need maybe consider SMEs regarding their digital maturity level, because there is some difference, and due to this difference, their point of view, their attention to these issues as privacy and data protection are not the same. So let's consider that part of the European SMEs do not consider security and data protection as a matter of concern, because they do not consider themselves as data-driven innovation. So they do not pay attention to the data they can collect, produce, reuse. They are very aware of the digital transformation process. And for part of this kind of European SMEs, I think it is important to keep the effort to increase the awareness of this European SME regarding the opportunity the digital transformation can provide to them. So this is one type of European SMEs, the SMEs for which we need to to continue to raise their awareness regarding both digital opportunities and also digital risk. At the opposite, we have some SMEs in Europe that are with the highest maturity level. They are companies for which handling personal data, it is the core component of their business process. Handling, collecting, processing, sharing data, industrial data or personal data, it is in their DNA. And in the case, it is you will find this kind of organization in the field of healthcare. There is many small and medium companies in Europe that trying to develop healthcare solution to cure some diseases, to improve health and so on. So you will easily find, but also in other sectors, in the public sector, we can suppose to find service provider that are dealing with the personal data of the citizen and so on. So we have in Europe this kind of this organization that have a high digital maturity level, and for them the challenge of those companies is to be able to manage security and data protection with no or limited financial, human, methodological, and technical resources. So we have a third level, which is in between the low and the high digital maturity level. And a company with, let's say, a medium digital maturity level have to face the two previous challenges I have introduced. The first one, we need to continue to support them in the identification of digital opportunity, to what extent they could transform the data they collect, the data they produce, into value for the business, for their business, for the different stakeholders of the organization. But they have also the to tackle or to overcome the challenges related to the management of the digital risk, meaning the risk related to security, privacy, ethics, data protection, and so on. And they have to do that without no or limited resources.
Okay.
Maybe I can just hide one point regarding the situation of the European SMEs regarding data protection and security. I think, but we need to, it's only an opinion, right? It's not something based on facts and so on evidence. It's just my opinion. I think that the main challenge for them, they have all of them, all of this kind of, the majority of European SMEs consider compliance would impede innovation. But in a digital world, there can be no innovation without trust. And security and data protection are required to gain trust from customer, from user, from employee. So they still consider compliance with GDPR as a constraint, or they need to consider it as the precondition to take advantage of the digital transformation.
Yeah. So I guess you frame it quite well, Philippe. So I guess that taking from your words, there is still, let's say, a long way to go. I believe there is this notion of creating awareness specifically in the first, let's say, level of SMEs that you just described. So I guess that there is a kind of work that needs to be done, which is creating awareness and also education from an educational perspective within these SMEs. And this will take us to my second question, which is, from your perspective, in taking into account the research agenda from the EU, and now I'm taking in, for example, the Horizon Europe work program. Do you think that from this perspective, in supporting the SMEs, in paving the way to create this awareness, how do you see for instance, Horizon Europe and also H2020 work program. How do you frame this from the EU perspective? How do you see that the EU it's basically tackling and paving the way towards what you just described? Are we on the right track? Are we on the right direction?
Yeah, I think, because if you consider the content of the different call related to Horizon Europe and previously Horizon 2020, I think that at the EU level, the approach is really consistent, meaning that the intention of the European Commission is to support the digital transformation, because they are convinced that we can create value, we can be able to tackle the societal, environmental challenges we're gonna to face in the coming year, thanks to the digitalization. So we have the GDPR. The GDPR is the first legislative pillar to, let's say, to define the rules. We can take advantage because we have access to technology today that are able to collect a really important volume of data. We have this technology, but now we need to take into consideration the consequence of using this technology. And the GDPR aims at, let's say, mitigating the risk related to data protection when you are handling personal data. So we have the GDPR, but at the political level, you have the Data Act. All the European policy is consistent to build the condition in Europe in order to foster the development of the digital economy at the European level. So, and I think that at the European level, they have well identified where are the challenges. And Sentinel is a good illustration, because Sentinel has been found in a call related to the development of solution and service that could be support the effort of the SMEs in regards to privacy and security compliance. So from my point of view, but it's only my point of view, I find the overall approach of the EU related to the development of its support to the digital transformation of part of our economy. It's well consistent, and the research and development agenda is well aligned with the needs of the actors, the stakeholders.
Okay, and you touched here a point which is, I would say, the political side, the political aspect, and also the legal constraints that are behind, for instance, the GDPR. But for instance, with regards to Sentinel, the idea is that we need to translate what are these constraints from a legal perspective. We need to translate those into something that it's technological, tangible, into technological assets that companies can use, can deploy, use, and to take value of these technological solutions. So this leads to my third question, which is, with the technological development that, for instance, Sentinel it's driving, and you started by identifying, let's say, three different levels of maturity with regards to SMEs. So it's almost impossible to come up with a solution that one size fits all. So there are different constraints with regards to the SME, the European SME ecosystem. So in your perspective, when it comes to the, let's say, the design of a technological solution, focusing here on these aspects, on GDPR, compliance and personal data protection, how do you see, or what do you see are the main, let's say, challenges in coming up with the solution, with the technological solution that can address, let's say, a huge variety of different requirements at the same time?
Yeah. The first main challenge is the trade-off between, let's say, the utility of data and data protection. This trade-off highlights the fact that you need to sometimes limit the amount of data, of personal data you need to collect in order to preserve the privacy, in order to preserve the right and the freedom of a natural person. But sometimes if you reduce or if you minimize the data you're gonna collect from your customer, from your user, from your employee, then you will reduce the utility of this data, because there is a lack of data that are required to get valuable understanding of the situation, understanding of the need, etc., are missing, because you have not collected enough information to identify some correlation, some important information from which you can build or you can create value for your business and for your stakeholders. So the first challenge is the trade-off between utility and data protection. To what extent I need to limit the volume of data, but to what extent, if I limit too much the volume of data I'm collect, I will be able or not to create value from the processing of personal data. This is the first challenges, and honestly, there is no, because as you said, there is no one solution that fits all situation. So in that context, we need to think about a governance mechanism which will be able to make a decision concerning this kind of controversy between utility and privacy. There is also obviously technical challenge in terms of the architecture of the system, the architecture of the application, and the architecture of the product, and so on, and technical challenge related to its component. Today, we can consider that this is for sure the part of the research which is the more active. There is many work related to what are the most useful privacy enhancing techniques, what are the most useful technology to encrypt, to ensure the pseudonymization of the data, to ensure the anonymization of the data. You have also a lot of reflection on decentralized architecture of a system in order to avoid the transfer of personal data between different systems. So really, there is a lot of attention and very good works developed in that field. But despite the profusion of such solution, the more solution you have, the more difficult it is to make a choice. So it is still very hard for a simple SME to select the appropriate technical and organizational measure to ensure the development of a privacy preserving solution. There is maybe another challenge is related to, let's say, the engineering process, because your question is about the design, the development of a new solution. So in this point, it's also a challenge, because GDPR introduced the obligation to ensure security, privacy, and data protection, both at the time of the determination of the mean, meaning at the design stage of the solution. So SME must then adapt their engineering approach to the manner they are define maybe a new business process, the way they define a new application, and so on. So they have to adapt their existing approach in order to integrate privacy engineering principle in their existing engineering approach. Such modification essentially consist in adding system quality attributes that are related to security and privacy, but it's also the modification of the fact to integrate privacy engineering principle means also to extend a little bit the stakeholder you're gonna involve during the development process of your solution. And I think especially to the data subject itself, because it is important to better involve the data subject when we have to determine the level of risk and to what extent the risk, the consequence of the use of a solution that is not really privacy preserving can have on the natural person. So it's important to take into consideration the different stakeholders that are concerned by the consequence of any privacy breach, for instance.
Yeah. So I guess into some extent the notion of privacy by design, it's something that should be addressed since day zero. But also, I also tend to realize that, let's say, the participation of the SMEs, the participation of the end user within the development of such, let's say, solutions should also be a must in this perspective, in this sense. With this regards, I would like to get your opinion about basically Sentinel, that it's a project that we are here representing. How do you foresee Sentinel in this framework? In the picture that you just described right now, how do you position Sentinel with this method with regards to the offerings of Sentinel? So we know that Sentinel it's a 3-year project. We are still on let's say the first year. But I would like to have your opinion about Sentinel and how Sentinel is tackling the way towards this, let's say, this perspective that you just described.
Yeah. So maybe in order to give you an answer to your question, maybe I maybe forget to mention another challenges regarding the development of a privacy preserving solution. This last challenges is about the management of the data-driven innovation throughout its entire life cycle. You cannot just pay attention to the first step of the development of your data-driven innovation. You also have to ensure that the performance in terms of security and of privacy, this performance is managed over the time, over the life cycle, the entire life cycle of the data-driven solution. So at this level, SMEs need to define a governance system in order to ensure the management of this solution, and especially the management of its performance in terms of security and privacy. So we need to get that, and in order to operationalize your governance framework, you need some tool, you need some services that helps you to give you an overview of the situation, that helps you to give you some information of the level of compliance of the different processing activity you are responsible for. So Sentinel, the solution is much more useful when you have to manage the security and the privacy data protection of the different processing activity you're responsible for. And Sentinel provide a set of services that could be used by the SMEs in regards of its privacy management obligation, let's say privacy management obligation. And Sentinel is a one single access point to the set of services that are useful for the company, because we covers all the main issue related to security, cybersecurity, but we also cover the main requirements of the GDPR. We have developed a way to determine the compliance level of the different processing activities. We have optimized the calculation of the data protection impact assessment for the processing activities. So Sentinel, the advantage and the added value of Sentinel, if I have to sum up a little bit my ideas, is first to provide one single shop, one single access point to a set of services that are useful in order to ensure the security, the privacy, and the data protection. But it's also a platform which digitalize some existing solution in order to make them available to small and medium organization. Because if we digitalize existing solution, because this is the case in, for instance, the GDPR compliance self-assessment, at the beginning, this solution required two privacy experts in order to perform the evaluation of the processing activity regarding data protection requirement. Thanks to Sentinel, we will be able to digitalize and automatize this approach in order to provide more or less the same result without mobilizing very expensive resources as the privacy expert, the classical method is based on. The classical method required human people to perform the task. Thanks to Sentinel, this task will be carried out by the machine itself. So the services will be cheaper for the SMEs. The service will be available, affordable by SMEs. So this is one aspect of the added value provided by the Sentinel. So it's much more related to the functional properties of the Sentinel itself. But there is also, from my point of view, a second advantage, which is related to the fact that all the plugin, all the model, all the services provided by Sentinel are linked by the same data set. It means that we can reuse information provided when the SMEs made an assessment, a security assessment. Some of this information are also relevant to determine some compliance, data protection compliance aspects. So we don't need to ask the SME to feed the system many times for each services. We can reuse the data for different purposes, for security purpose, for privacy purpose, for data protection purpose. So it's very useful for SMEs to have this kind of approach where all the data related to security aspect and to data protection aspect are in the available via the same solution. So very useful. I'm sure that is really very useful for SMEs.
Yes. So also a very ambitious project with regards to what you just mentioned. I mean, regarding the offerings and what is going to be the real value added into the companies, into the SMEs. Time it's flying, Philippe. It's very nice to have this chat with you, but we are pretty close to the end. We spoke we spoke mainly about the present, the current situation, the current status. We describe about the European funding, the European policies, also the SME landscape. You started out by identifying these, let's say, three levels of maturity, and I guess that the majority of SMEs could be on the first level that you just described initially. But how do you foresee the things that are going to be, let's say, in the next 5 years? Do you still agree that in the next 5 years we'll still have these three different levels of maturity, or do you think that at least the first level of maturity is going to be, let's say, reduced? How do you see us, for instance, within the next 5 years with regards to data privacy and GDPR compliance?
I don't know if there will still or not a company with a low digital maturity level. For sure, there will still a company at that level. But maybe the main evolution of the topics of cybersecurity and privacy for the 5 coming years, I see two main evolution. Maybe. The first one is related to the forthcoming Artificial Intelligence Act. As you may know, the EU Commission has proposed a regulation on the use of artificial intelligence. So this regulation will introduce another type of risk regarding cybersecurity and data protection, and this additional risk is ethics risk. So in the coming year, instead of just trying to deal with cybersecurity risk and privacy risk, we for sure we will need to consider ethics risk in this kind of triad with security, data protection, and ethics. So for the future, we will likely to extend a little bit the scope of the concern you have today by including ethics risk. So second evolution, it's is linked to the intention of the European Commission regarding data. As you may know, there is the Data Act, and this Data Act, part of this Data Act is about data sovereignty, meaning that we need to keep or to ensure that companies, if we are talking about industrial data, or individual, if we are talking about personal data, keep control over their own or their own data. You know, as a citizen, you are the owner of your personal data, and the challenge is whatever you are, a company or you are a natural person, the challenge is to make sure that you keep the control over your personal data. And in meantime, the Commission supports the development of let's say digital ecosystem, which are kind of digital space. It's a place where different stakeholders share together a set of data they have collected through their own activities, and the idea is to bring together all these data in order to use them to improve, for instance, healthcare issue, in order to, for instance, tackle new disease and so on, but also to tackle the challenges related to the mobility. So we can imagine that a bus company share the data of about its customer with another mobility operator in order to develop new and more customized services for improving the mobility of the person and so on. So we have in the future, instead of just being focusing on the organization, on the SMEs, the problematic related to cybersecurity, to data protection, and to ethics will need will need to take into consideration the network effect, because the data will not stay only located in one company. The data are supposed to be shared, are supposed to be combined with other data set in order to create value from this data. And tomorrow, the issue related to cybersecurity, to data protection, and to ethics will be more complicated due to this network effect. So this is, let's say, for the 5 coming years, the two main tendencies, the two main influence on the challenges related to cybersecurity and to data protection. So taking into consideration artificial intelligence, because if you have in mind the reflection regarding the requirement that have been defined at the European level of what is a trustworthy artificial intelligence, you need to take into consideration safety, you need to take into consideration security, you need to take into consideration data protection, and so on. So the fact to introduce the ethics risks will highlight the importance to be able to articulate, to better articulate ethics, data protection, and privacy, because if you want to ensure data protection, you have to make sure that the data are at the beginning secure. And if you want to get a trustworthy artificial intelligence, you need first to make sure that data protection is ensured. So there is an articulation, and I think in the coming years, we will focus on this articulation in order to define in articulation at the European level, because today there is a different representation of what is a data protection risk, how we can combine security and privacy risk. So I think that we need to work on it in order to provide a more clear representation of what is the risk related to the use of data-driven innovation.
Okay, Philippe. So thank you very much for this time and for your availability. We are at the end, so really time flies. It was really nice to have this time with you. I'm pretty sure that we could spend 1 more hour, but unfortunately we need to wrap up. Thank you once again. Thank you once again for your availability. I hope that in Sentinel we can have lots of success. At least the ambition and the challenges are there. We are paving the way towards this end. And for the rest of the people, please don't forget to subscribe the Sentinel YouTube channel. And please stay tuned for the upcoming Sentinel podcast, which is supposed to be launched, I would say, by the end of June. And thank you very much. We'll be in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.